Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Thank you for joining us, and I'm your host, Ben Crossman. As we get things kicked off here, we have a great show planned for you. As you know, hey, we did not get a chance to talk about Apple yesterday, and we decided to save it for today because, hey, you know, a lot of big announcements did come, and Apple is, you know, you can't deny it. They're one of the biggest, if not the biggest players, especially in the wearable to smartphone market, to tablet market, to just about everything that they touch, except PCs. But, you know, they're very much worth talking about. And we are going to dedicate today's show pretty much to them. We may, you know, wander off topic if we have time, but yeah, we're really going to try to make sure that everything that was announced yesterday, you will be up to date, caught up, and in the know for anything and everything that is Apple related. So, but before we jump into it with our guest, who is, yes, of course, Sandy Berger, before we jump into that, we have a few things to discuss, including computeramerica.com. That's where you'll find everything from the show notes to the, oh, there we go. Yeah, from the show notes to the contest to just anything that you may want to know about Computer America. Our website, computeramerica.com, has you covered. While you're there, check out the contest. Our prize, as I understand it, just shipped out yesterday to last Friday's winner. So we hope that we hope that they enjoy that. And of course, you know, hey, always love hearing, you know, from our fans. And let's see, the last thing is, of course, the live video feed where you can not only listen to Computer America, but you can watch Computer America. Just another way to experience the show. And hey, you know, just something that we are always working on, always developing, and enjoy doing it. So, and, you know, actually one thing before we get to our guest, and this is actually a word from one of our sponsors. So, everyone out there, are you hiring? And do you know where to go to post your job to find the best candidates? Well, hey, it's not that simple. It's, you know, especially when you have an overabundance of, you know, people maybe looking for the job, or, you know, or you have a job and it's just so hard to find the right talent. Well, don't worry. Our sponsor here has you covered, and that is, of course, ZipRecruiter. So with ZipRecruiter, you can post your job to 100 plus job sites with just a single click. Then their powerful technology efficiently matches the right person to your job better than anyone else. And that's why ZipRecruiter is different, where unlike other job sites, ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you, it finds them. And in fact, get this, 80% of employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate through the site within just 24 hours. Pretty impressive. And so that means no juggling emails, no calls to your office, simply screen, rate, and manage candidates all in one place with ZipRecruiter's easy-to-use dashboard. So find out today why ZipRecruiter has been used by businesses of all sizes and find the most qualified job candidates with immediate results. And of course, our listeners, you can try it out for free if you have a job and you want to, of course, you know, hey, find a good candidate. Well, post your job to ZipRecruiter.com/computer. Absolutely free, and hey, give it a try. Again, that's ZipRecruiter.com/computer. Give it a try, and hey, maybe just what you're looking for. So again, thank you, ZipRecruiter, and thank you to everyone out there for joining us here on Computer America as we get things kicked off here with, once again, our guest, the ever lovely Sandy Berger. That's right. She is our consumer electronics expert. She does everything and anything having to do with consumer electronics technology, and I can think of no one better to join us here on the show today to talk about yesterday's big announcement. So, Sandy, how are you doing? Welcome into the show.
Well, thanks. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, our pleasure, our pleasure. And glad that you sound good. Everything's working. Before we get things started with Apple, how are you doing? How have you been since you were last on the show?
Actually, done very well, and we the hurricane just missed us here in North Carolina.
Yeah.
So, we had a couple tense days over that, but we got through it, and I hope and pray that the people in Florida and Texas get through their hurricane problems. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Great to mention that. And of course, we're also in North Carolina at the moment. And yeah, our power did go out for like 12 hours, but that's like really nothing compared to, obviously what's happening in Florida. So good to
Right.
mention that. And of course, on a lighter note, we have a lot to talk about today. If you're going to be watching the video portion, we are, I found this article here until we, kind of do our own write-up. But, if we do, I mean, there's so many great things covering it. But this one from Newsday, and it's just kind of a nice, comprehensive, kind of look at what was announced yesterday. And just before we get started, I mean, Sandy, did you sit down and watch the whole thing, or did you catch it after the fact?
I sat down and watched the whole thing, and
Okay.
it's kind of funny because I really wanted to watch it on my television. And I could not do that because my Apple TV bit the dust a couple weeks ago. And you need an Apple TV to actually watch it on TV. You can't sling it from Chromecast. I have a Roku. I have all these devices that play things on TV, and only Apple really does still this. Now, last year they made it available for viewing on Windows 10.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I couldn't find any way to sling it from the Windows 10 to the television, so I was stuck watching it on a tablet, but that's what I did.
Yeah, I will say that they also do restrictions like they make you watch on Safari if you're on other platforms.
Ex Exactly. That's why you can't cast it from a Google Chrome
Right.
browser. Yeah, because you can only watch it on Safari. You know, to be honest with you, that kind of made me a little aggravated over over how Apple thinks they're better than everybody else, and they're not anymore. They're not. So
Well, and of course we're going to
interesting.
get in. Yeah, we're definitely going to get into why they're not. But I will say that from some of the tidbits I picked up, such namely the wireless charging. I mean, at least they're starting to kind of hold a hand out and say, hey, we're open to other technologies. Specifically the key charging or however you say QI wireless charging. I mean, they're at least starting to bring in other technologies from other folks. So that's good to see. But let's actually kind of break this down step by step. So for everyone who missed it, this was the first time that they were actually using their new campus. First and foremost, it's like the big donut spaceship, right? And it was held in the Steve Jobs Theater.
Right. Called the Steve Jobs Center, and it's right on the campus there. I don't know exactly where because it's been a few years since I've actually been to their campus, but in any case, the design of the place itself is fabulous, and I understand from friends who have been there now, who have been there yesterday, that the inside is just as nice as the outside. It's supposed to be a fabulous place.
Very, very cool. And I'm sure that this will be the place where we'll be seeing any Apple announcements in the, in the near to distant future will be held at their campus in the Steve Jobs Theater. So that, of course, is probably not going to change. And I think they also talk about the Fifth Avenue store, which was always kind of a weird looking little store. And I think like they didn't want to call it the store. That was another thing that rubbed people the wrong way. Speaking of, kind of rubbing people the wrong way with you
Right.
and that. They're like, we don't call them stores, we call them communities or something like that. And
Marketplaces or,
marketplaces.
something other than stores, exactly. And what they're doing with the stores is the first thing that Tim Cook talked about yesterday was that they are expanding the stores to be even more community kind of centers. And he also showed one that they're building or renovating a building to put it in Paris, and one on Michigan Avenue in Chicago. And I'll tell you, these stores, if you want to call them that, are going to be fabulous. Really well designed and beautiful, beautiful places.
Isn't it funny that the company that probably destroyed human interaction by giving us these little screens to stare at instead of talking to people
Yeah,
are the ones who are trying to bring back the community feeling? It's
community. Yeah, yeah.
eh,
Well, I guess they're trying to make up for it a little bit.
I guess so. I guess so. But no, architecture side, that's something that you can definitely see pictures of. And the stores, if you live in the area, if you are lucky enough, then you'll be able to check those out. But to the actual gadgets that you'll be looking at in the coming months, and most things have like a launch date of like November or October, something like that. So, but the first thing, as I understand it, that was talked about, something that if I'm trying to, scratch my brain to see how you felt about the Apple Watch 1 and 2, and I'm sure that your sentiment wasn't too far from most people's, where it was like, it was good. It's probably the best wearable out there, but it's still, pretty hit or miss. Wearables are still not quite there yet. So the Apple Watch, what did
Well,
you think
the
of the third
Apple
one?
Watch was a big announcement for Apple yesterday, and this is what, the third generation that they're coming out with
Right,
now.
right.
And your question is, what did I think of the first and second generations?
Yep.
I did. I loved the quality of the build. I liked what they could do and how easy it was to navigate them. However, I found them right from the start very lacking. My husband has a Samsung Gear watch that allows him to make phone calls, and this was the big announcement yesterday, is that you could now on the Apple Watch make a phone call without having your Apple phone with you. Well, my husband has been doing that for 2 years with a Samsung Gear watch. And they made it sound like this is the only phone in the world that can do this, and all that. Now, they do. It was maybe a little bit better. I don't know. On the Gear Watch, being 2 years old, he gets some really good connectivity, and the sound sounds good. But he has a separate number, um, and so it does roll from his Samsung phone number to the watch number, but he has a separate number now.
Hmm.
Apple's not going to have that. It's going to be all one number, which in a way makes more sense to me.
Right.
Um, but I don't know how all that's going to work out yet. So, but again, they're just catching up with
Yeah.
the competition.
I definitely like that. I thought that maybe they were, and Albert, I just I've been checking out highlights, so you're probably gonna have to fill in a lot of the details. But I'd assume that when it said that the Apple Watch could make phone calls, I thought just like buying a tablet, and you had to get its own data plan, you have to get its own phone number, you have to get its own SIM card. I thought it was going to be that way, but you're saying it's simply an extension of the phone, and it's kind of copying your phone's kind of SIM
Right. Well,
information.
what they announced was that it would be using the same telephone number as your iPhone, and that it would also have the same type of connectivity. It would have its own SIM card, which is
Hmm.
a very, he talked about how small the SIM card has to be put in the phone, even smaller than, I mean, in the watch, even smaller than the ones in the phone. Um, but it sounds like you will not get or will not need your own number. So, say on my husband's Gear watch, we pay Verizon $5 a month for the connectivity on the watch.
Hmm.
Now, nothing was said about that. Will there be any extra charges? The only thing that was stated is that it will be the same number as your iPhone.
Right. Okay. So, but odds are, if you want data and things like that, they'll probably charge you. But I do find that very cool because if it's one number, one less number that you have to memorize, and kind of wondering,
Right.
did I give them my watch number or my phone number? It's and it's weird saying that your watch number. Did I give them my watch number? So no, very very good.
And just
And
the idea that you can make a phone call with your watch, brings back anybody who remembers Dick Tracy comic
yeah.
books, brings that all back. Maxwell Smart with his shoe phone and all that
Hmm.
sort of thing. So it is very forward thinking, and they made other changes in the watch, especially health related changes. Um, the um, the heart monitor is going to be much better, and they're partnering with others uh, to actually be able to do more with the heart rate monitor. So they're looking at the watch the way a lot of people are looking at it now, as something that helps them be healthier, walk more steps, monitor their health, and that sort of thing. So I think that the watch could really be big.
Yeah, and if I'm recalling, it was a story just last month. It was like August 13th, 14th, whenever they announced it. Just looked it up, and yeah, it was Aetna, however you want to say, that large healthcare provider. They
Mhm.
are partnering with Apple Watches to at least all of their employees, and then maybe their customers are going to get a discount on an Apple Watch. I mean, it seems like the wearable is still intrinsically linked to the idea of health. Like if you want to be healthier, then you are the prime niche for wearables. Like, did Apple, kind of try to shake that at all, or was it, this is a prime purpose for a wearable?
They brought it to home to say, "Oh, this is the purpose. A lot of people are buying it for it, and we're going to improve on that."
Okay,
So they are improving on it in a big time way. They are buying into the idea that it's a health device, but at the same time, it's an entertainment device. They also announced that you're going to be able to play all of Apple Music on your watch. So, I don't know how many millions of songs they have, but you're going to be able to play that all on your watch. For people that are totally involved in the Apple venue and the Apple ecosystem, that's great. I mean, but if you happen to be using Google Play or Amazon for your music, that kind of leaves that out. Although I'm sure there's ways to play it. So.
right. Yeah, and and also I'm sure when we talk about the Apple, the Apple TV 4K, which I was thinking maybe Apple flipped a kill switch and it killed your Apple TV so that you'd be, all ready to buy to upgrade to the next one. But
It
yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
it actually happened through an update.
Oh,
Apple TV, the old one, had a big update, and the next day my Apple TV wouldn't work. I went online, and there were hundreds of complaints, and there were things that you could do, and I did all that, and I never did get it to work. So what Apple told me is bring it to the store, and we'll take a look at it. But I live far away from an Apple store, so
right,
one of these days I will get up there and see what they say about my old Apple TV.
right.
And hopefully they won't just say buy a new one.
Yeah, and sometimes they do indeed do that. And so actually speaking of the again looking at the highlights here, Apple Watch OS 4. Did they say that speaking of buying a new one, would the Watch OS 4 strictly be for the new Apple Watch, or is it an update going out to all Apple Watches?
I don't believe he said that.
All right,
I don't
so
recall anyway.
okay. Yeah, so but they said it will be available September 19th. So hey, maybe if you do have an Apple Watch, then September 19th there should be an update for your watch. So
Right.
yep, and we already mentioned the ability to of course have cell phone conversations and things like that. Did they say that they improved the hardware at all? Because obviously cell phone, and that's a good. But what about waterproof or the battery life or anything like that? Anything improve?
I don't know about the battery life. I don't know that they stated that, but obviously there's a new chip in there and it's going to be faster. And they had to do a lot with the hardware just to take advantage of these other things that they have. It will also be wirelessly charged, and they're going to have a pad that you could place your iPhone on, your new iPhone that is,
Hmm.
and your new Apple Watch, because the old ones won't have this, that can wirelessly charge both at the same time. So there's a lot of changes in the watch, all for the better.
Right. And we're going to talk about wireless charging here in a little bit. But $329 or $400 if you want the cell phone connectivity as well. And yeah, so I guess, but not a lot of surprises. Just just kind of an all around better, and like you said, about damn time for the Apple Watch.
Yes, I think so. And we can say exactly the same thing for the Apple TV,
Hmm?
which they also announced a new version of the Apple TV. Well, it's been several years since they updated it. Roku, Fire Stick, all the others have 4K, and Apple TV now has 4K. So again, they're playing catch up with the others.
Right, yeah, and not only that, but I believe it was like Apple finally made deals with the likes of like Roku to kind of get uh you know Apple streaming services through Roku or something like that. I mean, everyone else seems to really have made their streaming devices a priority because they see the trend of cord cutting, and
Right.
Apple, you're right. That they've kind of been left in the dust, and now they're coming out with 4K, and it's probably not having the emotional impact it probably would have had a year ago or even 2 years ago.
Exactly, exactly right. The 4K, and it's got HDR, which is very, very nice. They did a demo on that. But again, Roku has had that for well over a year. I think maybe even a little longer.
Hmm.
And so that was the really big thing. Now, they also announced, but didn't go into details on sporting events, that they were having some live sporting events on the Apple TV. And they had one nice thing. If you again, if you're entrenched in the Apple ecosystem and you use Apple TV now, and you've purchased high def TV shows, they now announced that they would give you a free update to the 4K movies that you
Hmm.
had purchased. So there were some nice things about it, and I'm sure the live sports are going to be great. Um, but they're just playing catch up with the other guys.
Right. Yeah. I definitely remember, places such as YouTube, of all places, also trying to attract people with live sporting events and things like that because they
Right.
see it as, the last bastion of live television is, sporting events and news. And
Right.
if you can bring that to your system, then that makes it all the more attractive. So, Apple TV, so it looks like they have a non 4K and a 4K version, with onboard memory.
Well,
So,
they're still selling the old version is
okay.
what it is. There's only one new version, but they are still going to be selling the old version.
Now, $200. That sounds like the top end because, just about, I'd say about a month and a half ago, I was looking at streaming devices. And I'll be honest, $200 for the 64 gig Apple TV 4K. Uh, even when you go like the top end of like the Roku line, which is, I think like the most popular at this point, even theirs is like 130, I think, for their top end, or 150.
That's right. Yeah, the Ultra. I think there might even be no. The Ultra is their best one. But yeah, you're getting it cheaper, and you're getting everything that pretty much everything that Apple is going to give us, unless Apple makes some connections with companies for live sporting events and things like that. That's the only reason to get an Apple TV over a Roku. I have an Apple TV. I have a Roku. I have a Fire TV. I like Fire TVs very much, but I think Roku is by far the best. And from the demo that we saw yesterday, I think Roku is still going to be better.
Right. And the only reason that again you might want to consider it is if you are, like you said, entrenched in the ecosystem and you kind of want to share that connectivity, being able to cast things, throw things, or airplay things, however you want to say it. That may be an attractive proposition, but $200, that's
Yeah,
little on the steep end for, like you said,
exactly.
yeah, again, for, like you said, products that are playing catch up. So.
And we haven't even gotten to the really expensive stuff yet.
No, and yeah, and actually, I think we're gonna touch on the prime feature, and that is their phones, because you can say what you want about their streaming services, you can say what you want about their Apple Watches, but their phones, they are their bread and butter. And to kind of say that they had a big announcement, I will say that I did win a bet, and anyone who's listening, last week this time, I was talking with Mike Cermak. There we go. And he said that the Apple iPhone X/10, the Apple iPhone 10, wouldn't happen. And I got to say, haha, I was right. But then I was wrong because I thought that onboard memory storage was going to finally come to iPhone. And yeah, I know.
Don't I wish?
I know. I was
I wish.
so sad to see that it wasn't happening. But let's talk about what they did now. So let's start with the iPhone 8. And this was, I guess, something that I thought was going to be the iPhone 7S, and instead it was the iPhone 8. So what is...
Right. So they announced an iPhone 8 and an iPhone 8 Plus, just as they have an iPhone 7 and an iPhone 7 Plus. One being slightly larger than the other. But they announced a new processor chip. So the iPhone 8 should definitely be faster than the iPhone 7. But personally, I don't know anybody who is holding an iPhone 7 or some equivalent phone and saying this phone is too slow.
Yeah.
They've reached the point they're fast enough that I don't think you buy a new phone just because it's going to be a little faster.
Yeah.
So the size, the display, the aspect ratio, uh, everything, including the rear cameras and front cameras from the iPhone 7 and the iPhone 8 are the same.
Yeah, that's something that I, really picked up on, was that the iPhone, I'm kind of sad that they did name it the iPhone 8 and not just the 7S, because that's what it really felt like. Was this was just, the next evolution of the iPhone 7. Instead, they
Right.
jumped ahead to the 8. And it might have been, marketing, it might have been something along those lines, but again, it's not really. Yeah, I have an iPhone 7 Plus, and that's the part I did watch. I didn't see anything there that really blew my mind.
Well, there's nothing. I have an iPhone 7 right now, and there was nothing in the iPhone 8 that would make me want to purchase it. The camera is going to have the new portrait thing, and that might be a little bit better. The whole phone now is made out of glass, and they had to do that so that they could do the wireless charging. By the way, the iPhone 8 and the iPhone 10
Hmm.
are both going to have the wireless charging, and the watch are going to have wireless charging. But again, that's something that Samsung has had out for a few years, so there's nothing new there. It has the Lightning ports, and it also has no um,
Three
headphone
point
port.
five millimeter headphone jack.
Yeah, no. So that's just like the iPhone 7. So I just don't see anything saying to me, you should buy a new phone. You should buy an 8 and upgrade your 7. And I think that that's where, if other people are thinking the same way I am, that's where Apple might be letting things down.
So and we're this hour's flying by already, but we're fast approaching a break here in about 2 minutes. But I do want to kind of get your feeling, because as I understand it, you have your husband there as your guinea pig for Android stuff, and
You better not call him that. He
all right.
wouldn't like that.
Well, either way,
But it's true. Yes. Okay.
you have your you have your tester and there
Yes.
for your Android devices, and you said that wireless charging has been a feature for a little while, but for Apple to finally do this, everyone's saying, well, kind of about time. And so let's talk about Apple. I will give them props. I'm sorry, there's something happening here. It's very, very weird. But I will give them props that they didn't come out with some weird hippy dippy, Apple wireless charging, super duper Apple branded, kind of crap. How do you feel about them using the key, the key charger? Are you a fan of that technology?
Yeah, I'm a fan of that technology, and I think it's really great that they're using that technology because they are going to sell millions of these phones, and it will help improve the technology. And this is a technology that's been out there for a while, but they didn't develop their own. And I think that's what you're saying. Instead of being really proprietary, this is a format that's been out there for a while and is proven. So I agree with you that it's good that they used it.
Right. And that is exactly what I was getting at, was that, you started off the hour by saying that you kind of got the feeling that Apple felt they were better than everyone, and then they come out and this entire time that they're playing catch up, and they do use someone else's technology. So if you already have the charging pads or you know someone, that's great. I'm sure that you can buy them for $100 more at Apple if you if you so choose. Real quick, the pricing for the iPhone 8. Do you recall, kind of where the iPhone 8 kind of sits? Because as I understand it, as we go into the holidays, I mean, they're still marketing the iPhone 7. Like, it's not going away. It's part of their strategy.
And that's part of their strategy, kind of across the board, because they're also still going to be selling the old Apple TVs and the old Apple Watches.
Yeah.
So I guess they've done well with selling the lesser stuff at a lesser price.
I guess so. And yeah, we're going to have to leave it there for just a moment. Everyone, music means we're going to take a break. We'll be right back. More Sandy Berger, more Computer America, just after this.
We are all Brother Wolf. 10 years ago, a group of locals banded together to create positive change. We took animals into our homes, held adoption events at local retailers, and talked to the community about our mission to help build a no-kill Asheville. A decade later, we have achieved so many victories for animals in need. There's been so much progress, yet there's still so much to do. As part of our year-long celebration, we encourage you to become a member of our special Compassionate Circle program. With a monthly donation of $10 or more, you will have behind-the-scenes access to the work we are doing at Brother Wolf. Our goal is to reach 1,000 members because we receive no government funding. Working together, we can help build and sustain no-kill communities. Learn more at compassionatecircle.bwar.org. We are a 501c3 tax-deductible organization.
And welcome back to the Computer America Show. It is 31 minutes past the hour as we continue on here with Sandy Berger herself. She writes for, of course, CompuKiss, that's her website, and for many, many other publications that you can find in the show notes as we are here dissecting, well, Apple and what they have discussed and what they've announced just yesterday at their new campus. And yeah, just getting into the phones, the iPhone 8, like Sandy was saying, that they are still pushing the iPhone 7, which, more to your point, that I personally have one. You said that you have one. You really don't feel like it's that much of a step down from an iPhone 8. If anything, it's just about the same. So for them to kind of sell it for, $200 less, I think in some cases, I think the iPhone 7 might be the big seller this holiday season as opposed to the iPhone 8. But because for everyone out there, the iPhone 8, I believe it does start at $700 for the iPhone 8, and then for the Plus, it is $800. And yeah, hey, that's what the old 7s used to go for. But now, the wild card, if you can call it that, the ever leaked but often talk about the iPhone 10, or if you're trying to Google search it, you might have better luck with the iPhone X. And sorry about that, kind of had you muted. But yeah, so the ever talked about, the often leaked iPhone 10. Sandy, what'd you think of it?
I think that the first thing everybody's going to look at is, wow, a phone that cost over $1,000. Now, I know there's a lot of people who would pay that much for a camera and for other devices that they have. So it's really not that much money, but it sure sounds like it when you think I'm going to have to spend $1,000 to get a new phone. And the bigger the one with more memory, I think, was $1,150.
Yeah.
So the first one is $999, and then the one with more memory is a little bit more. So what are they giving you for this? Actually, some things that are just playing catch up, and some things that are truly unique. The catch up items are OLED screen. Again, Samsung and others have had that for quite a while. They're also they're going to have good waterproofing in it, but instead of the fingerprint security,
Touch ID,
Touch ID, instead of that, they're having, I think they call it 3D touch.
Face ID.
Face ID.
Touch
Okay,
ID, Face
Face
ID.
ID.
Yeah.
Yep. And Face ID is where you just look at the camera and it will turn itself on by taking a picture of your face. So they say look in the camera and smile. I don't know why you have to smile.
You probably don't have to.
Now, during the demo, what was interesting is it failed for him twice. 2 times he had to go to the individual numbers of putting his numbers in because the Face ID failed. Now, does that mean it's not quite ready for prime time, or were they overwhelmed because of the whole venue and the theater and all that? I really don't know, but the thing is there is no backup fingerprint display
Hmm.
or so I think that the I would have liked to have seen on the back of the phone, like you see on some LGs and other phones, to have a backup for the fingerprint. Also, if you don't like the idea of having your picture taken over and over again, I'm sure there's a few people who won't like that.
I
It would be nice to have a
that's
fingerprint.
that is like verbatim. That is the exact sentiment I've picked up from social media and the like. Was that they spent years developing Touch ID, and they've gotten it to a point where it works really, really well. And I think people are comfortable with it. And, they're
Right.
no longer worried about, the government cataloging your fingerprints. And then they kind of throw it up in the air and go, well, Face ID is going to be more secure. It's going to be faster, better, more responsive. And everyone's just kind of sitting there going, it's the same trepidation, I think, as the Touch ID, but they don't know if it's going to work as well, and they promise it works better, even though, like you said, it didn't on stage. So
Right.
I don't know. It might have to be one of those things that you have to kind of try. I will say that this is indeed catch up because was it the Samsung Galaxy line kind of has the same
Hmm.
idea,
Yeah.
and that could be fooled with a picture. Did Apple kind of fix that?
Well, I don't know. That's the thing. Nobody, I mean, very few
Well,
people
yeah,
actually got to touch this thing yesterday, and we're not going to know till it gets out there just how good it is. It's got to be pretty darn good for them to have put all their eggs in this basket.
yeah.
But there are things not to like about it. For instance, you would think that if it took a picture of your face and it recognized you, it could open the phone. But no, it opens the phone and then you still have to swipe up to get to the home screen. So you still have that extra, and I know I might be sounding lazy, but I just think that the Face ID should have just opened it up to the home screen, which it
The
doesn't.
the only complaint I've heard, and it's totally first world problem, totally small, but for people who have the Android phones that do that, they complain that when they are listening to music in their car or something like that, they pick up their phone to skip the song, and when they pick up the phone and it recognizes their face, it goes to the kind of start it kind of goes to the start screen instead of the just letting them push that one button. So.
Yes, I'm sure there's reasons why they did this, but again, that's just me that I'm
Right.
not too crazy about it. The real thing I think would bother me about the Face ID is that at night you have to have a flash in your face.
Yeah.
It has to actually take a picture of you with a flash, and I don't think I would like that. I don't like it when people flash things in front of me, be they light bulbs or cameras or whatever. So I don't think I'm going to like that. But if it works as well as they say it will, maybe it'll be worth these little things that are wrong with it right at first.
Right. Yeah. And that is the we keep hitting upon it. It's the difference between seeing Apple in full gears, full blast, saying this is the best thing ever, and then people finally being able to touch it, play with it, and see put it through its paces. And we're not going to know that for another couple of weeks at the earliest. But I will say that they did announce other things that I think were an extension of the face camera. And I don't know, they like I think when people sit down at an Apple event, it's the nerdiest of the nerdiest. Like I don't think it has mass appeal. I don't think kids are watching it. I don't think it has, people who are just casually strolling by going to sit down and watch it. Why do you think they kind of put so much emphasis on animojis? Because I don't know.
Yeah, because they were cute.
I guess. I don't know.
All right, let's explain to people what an emoji is, like an emoticon type thing. Um, so you have certain animals or spacemen or whatever, and this new Face ID, because it can see everything that with your face, you can make facial expressions, and they transfer that to, they say you were having a teddy bear talk, and they make the teddy bear talk and give the facial expressions that you give, which I have to admit was absolutely adorable. I'd love to play with it.
I
It's not,
I
I wouldn't buy a phone for it, but I'd
right.
love to play with it.
Right, and it's definitely going to be cheeky. I will say that this was, for anyone out there who's been listening long enough, I say about maybe 4 years ago on the show, we had a company on called FaceRig, and they had a Steam application, the video game platform that let you do essentially the same thing, but with a webcam in your home computer. Very, very cool that Apple was able to fit it into a phone, because I remember you had to have a a rather beefy rig. It took a lot of processing power to to do this kind of thing, to make the puppet, to make it expressive and that kind of thing, and for them to be able to do it in a phone. I think maybe that's kind of why they showed off the Animoji so much, was it does take a lot of processing power to do something like this, and it does kind of show, if you know what it takes, it does kind of show the iPhone 10 is a beefier phone than
Oh,
most other
you're
phones.
definitely right. This is a very, very powerful phone, and just to do what we're talking about doing, it took a lot of power in the phone itself, and a lot of really good information that
Yeah.
went into programming this thing. I kind of laughed at myself when you said that there were so many geeky people and nerds in the audience here. At one point, right at the end, Tim Cook got up and said, "We want to thank all you Google, I was going to say Google employees, no,
Right.
Apple employees who are here." And he said, "Would you please stand up?" And they panned the crowd, and about half the people stood up.
Okay.
So, so it made it look, at least from my angle, that half the audience were Apple employees. Um,
Well, and I'm sure that it's something fun about the fact that Apple employees got to reserve their seats first. But
oh
no,
yeah,
it does show that Apple, they at least do care about their employees to an extent, because obviously with things like Foxconn, Apple has been seen by a lot of people as someone who does not care about their
right.
employees. So, but getting back to the iPhone 10, the battery life, they say it's lasting 10. I'm sorry, 10. Wow, 2 hours longer than the iPhone 7. So not the iPhone 8, but the iPhone 7. Um,
Right.
which
Now,
go ahead.
that's good because of all the processing power that this phone has, and we can see it with various features that they have. Uh, to have it 2 hours longer than the iPhone 7 is really good. And a lot of people have complained about the battery life of the iPhone 7, that they would like to see it be better. One thing that I'm not sure if I missed it and they said it, but I did not hear them talk about the battery power of the iPhone 8. So will that be the same as the 7 or not? I would
Yeah.
assume it would be better, but I don't can't say that for sure.
It's probably about the same, because like you said, a lot of the hardware, a lot of the internals of the iPhone 8 are essentially the same as the iPhone 7
Hmm.
with minor tweaks. I bet it's more of a marketing thing, where Apple didn't want to say the iPhone 10 has a 2 hour battery life better than the iPhone 8, and it's like, oh, you're
Right.
already putting
They said,
down, yeah,
yeah,
your current
yeah.
generation. So it's probably similar to iPhone 7 for sure. But and also for those of you who care about points and grams and ounces, this thing weighs, I'm sure the iPhone 10, I think I read, weighs a little bit less than the iPhone 8 Plus, so it's about the same, and they're able to get more battery density out of it. So
Right. And
not
it's
bad.
just slightly bigger, but you've got a bigger screen because it does go end to end the screen now.
Yeah.
No home button, no bezel around it, on the screen anyway. So you'll actually have more screen space, which is very nice. It looks like a really great phone. and they also even improved the cameras.
Right. Yeah, the cameras, and we'll definitely talk about that because, that's always been, kind of one of Apple's hoping is that people who buy these, they buy them, kind of for the cameras because they, it's but that is a crown that I feel has been passed off between Android and Apple, whenever the Samsung Galaxy line doesn't explode, it passes back and forth on who has the best camera. So, did they kind of show off because, I noticed that they did have let's see if I can find it here. It was like the true tone flash, where if you've ever tried to take a picture with a camera flash, yeah, it works, but it kind of whitewashes everything out. What do you think?
Right.
What do you think about the camera system in general with the new
I
iPhone?
think that the camera system is going to be quite a bit better. If you're really into photography, if you're really into taking pictures and you want the best pictures, this phone is probably going to be, it sounds like it's going to be better than the Samsung Galaxy phone cameras, which I think are really good.
Right.
It's got the it's got the two different lenses, wide angle and telephoto. The most impressive thing is that it's got optical image stabilization on both of those lenses. And on other phones, it's only on one lens if it has it at all. I think optical image stabilization for the average person who's taking these pictures in a hurry and maybe shaking their hands or shaking the phone a little bit, this will definitely give better pictures. They also have a portrait lighting mode and a portrait mode. Now, the lighting mode is supposed to be better, and the portrait mode, of course, is already good because it can really, in real time, take your face and make it stand out, take your body and make it stand out from the background.
Right.
And I think that that's something that is going to be very useful in taking everyday pictures.
Yeah, and so I think that's just about it. Now we're gonna start getting into kind of emotions. How does this make you feel? And Sandy, I'm gonna ask you. I've seen some resentment. I mean, obviously, there is a vocal minority about people who are just looking to be mad about something, and they will be mad about anything. But for anyone out there who has not seen pictures of the iPhone 10, they have instead of a black bar all the way across the top, the black bar that hosts the that hosts the front facing camera, that hosts this the speaker for your ear, things like that. It's in the black bar there only takes up about half of the top row, and then you have these two. I've heard them called ears. I kind of like that. Ears that kind of stick up and extend from the screen that are included in the picture. What do you think about the design? Because it's certainly, if you look at other, bezel-less or minimal bezel phones, this is different, but I'm not sure it's different in a good way.
I think it is very different. Although when you're just looking at the phone, you don't even notice. It's just, your rectangular black phone with all screen.
Right.
So you don't really notice that till you start looking at it, and that little black part at the top is where they actually have all of the gyroscopes and the different things that are handled by the phone. Um, I, to me, I like the Samsung Edge phone
Hmm.
a little bit better, but I have not seen this phone in person yet.
Right.
So I have to withhold my expression there until I know for sure
Right.
that I don't like this one better.
Your
I was
cynicism.
disappointed, and it comes in the space gray, which is their blackish, and it comes in silver, and it doesn't come in the rose gold or the gold,
Mm.
which I was a little disappointed because I have an iPhone 7 in the rose gold, and I kind of like that.
I'm kind of wondering if they're how many they're truly expecting to to sell because like you said that's as cheeky as it sounds. I mean, black and silver, very masculine. It is what it is. But I have seen a lot of women, and just even Craig himself. He went for the gold instead of just the black.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
you know, people liked it, but maybe they just aren't expecting it to have that much of a mass appeal, and the people who would want it would just simply want the black or the silver, I guess.
I'm not sure. I mean, they must have researched this quite a bit to be able to know what colors to bring out.
Right.
Um, And I'm sure I'd be happy with the silver phone, as happy as I am with the rose gold or the gold. Um, but it's just a decision that they made, and maybe there was a reason that they made it too. Maybe they
Maybe.
couldn't get the materials in the right color or something. Now, because this phone is different, it's different like the iPhone 8, in that it's all glass
Right.
on both sides, and they're supposed to be the strongest glass possible. It's supposed to be not crack as easily and not break as easily because they have this special glass. And the glass, of course, also allows for the wireless charging.
Right. And of course we'll definitely be hearing more about that, because now that Apple is doing wireless charging, it was certainly a thing, and I've seen people fall in and out of love with the idea of wireless charging. But hey, maybe now that Apple does it, maybe now it's cool or something. I don't know. Um, so
Well,
what?
I've always thought it was cool
Uh, right.
to be able to take your phone, and that's something that I can't do with my iPhone 7, but my husband can do with his Samsung Galaxy phone. Is he comes home and he puts it on the charger and it's good to go.
Right. It's the thing that I've heard. I think NPR did a pretty nice piece on it, where people on the go. I heard that the first few iterations of the key charger was slower than just plugging it into a computer, or plugging it into an outlet. So maybe that was the reason. Maybe they fixed it, and the wireless charging is as fast as any other option. In which case, perfect. But yeah, again, we'll see if that continues on. But they are betting big, because like you mentioned, every new version of the iPhone, and including their Apple Watch, now has wireless charging. I'm sure tablets
Right.
are not too far behind as well.
And I hate to feel like I'm very lazy, but I think that that's a big convenience. And I'm a lover of not Apple Home, because Apple Home didn't come out yet,
Right.
of Google Home and the Amazon Echo. And those are just little conveniences of being able to tell your Echo to turn the lights on and off, and to do these little things that make a huge difference in your life if you add them all up. I think it's taking advantage of the latest and greatest technology. And so I have always liked in the wireless charging, and I'm sure I'll like it in this.
Yeah, and again, we'll definitely see. Now, some of the things that maybe we were disappointed, or even if you could just kind of fill us in on some of the other announcements that maybe they didn't do, because so far, for anyone out there paying attention, we have the new campus, their new stores, we have the Apple Watch, we have the Apple TV 4K, we have the Apple phones. That leaves tablets, desktops, and laptops out of the loop. I mean, they didn't have anything to kind of say about those items.
They did not, and they also didn't have anything to say about the what are they calling the Apple Home device?
Oh,
Uh,
HomeKit.
HomeKit is
Oh,
not the device itself. It's what they use to connect the
yeah.
Apple Home.
HomePod.
HomePod,
Yeah.
yes, that's it, the HomePod. They did not mention that at all. Now I know they mentioned that quite in depth on the last big
Yeah.
meeting that they had. But I was expecting at least a glance at it to say, okay, we've added this and now it's going to be better or whatever. You know, Google Homes have gone on sale just about everywhere. Um, Amazon Echoes have been on sale. So they are ready to get their devices out there before Apple. And so I thought Apple would at least make some mention of it, so that we would all be talking about it today. But they said absolutely nothing about the HomePod.
Yeah, and you think that obviously with with the Apple 4K TV, and the Apple TV 4K, one of the prime kind of use cases for something like an Alexa or a Google Home would be walking in the door and going, Apple, or whatever the trigger word is, put on Game of Thrones, or put on blah blah blah, and you're right, nothing at all said about it. So seems like they're putting a lot of emphasis on their wearables, on their little devices. No desktop announcements, no laptops announcements, just
Right.
right off stage
Right.
after the phones.
And the iPhone 8, to be honest with you, as you said, it was like an iPhone 7S. it was pretty much a disappointment.
Right.
Now, the iPhone 10 is not a disappointment because it's got all these neat features. I mean, you can now use Apple Pay with your face, which
Yeah.
is kind of cool. You know, there's a lot of coolness about this phone, a lot of new things that are built in, and a lot of power about the X. But I was disappointed in some of the other announcements that they made.
Did they announce anything about iOS 11? Because we've been hearing some things about that, but
I've been hearing about it, but they did not make a big deal about it or go into details on it. I think there's going to be some really nice features in iOS 11, and we're going to have. Well, I think there's a beta that you can actually
yeah.
chime in on right now, but I haven't
Oh,
done that, so I haven't looked at it yet.
oh yeah, and one other point that I did get to see, I wasn't, again, it's kind of like the animojis. You see it, it's cool, but you think it's limited. You know, its use cases are limited. I saw a Tyrannosaurus Rex chasing some basketballers around a court. Augmented reality. I mean,
Yes, that is something we didn't really talk about, and they are leaning toward that. They had a game demo with augmented reality, and I think there's going to be more and more of that, and it is built into this phone, the X. Um, the 10, I should say. I keep
yeah,
saying X, but it's really 10,
right.
iPhone 10. Okay. So there's going to be a lot of that built in, and that's where a lot of the power goes because that augmented reality actually takes up some power. And I think that that's going to be big, but it's an unknown as far as how it's going to develop in this phone, what people write games for it and applications
Yeah.
for it that can take advantage of it. That's yet to be seen.
Yeah, and and it seems like I know that obviously augmented reality is not virtual reality, but you could definitely associate the two. And so Apple does not have an official kind of headset you can slip your phone into like the Samsung Gear. I mean, Apple didn't say anything
Right.
about that kind of accessory.
No, they didn't. That would be, as you mentioned, virtual reality, where you put something over your eyes and you
Right.
actually see the world around you through this headset. And Apple has not bought into that. They have bought into the augmented reality, which is like having uh, some digital object flying through the air or looking like it's flying through the air of where you're actually sitting right now.
Right. Yeah. For anyone out there who uses Snapchat, Snapchat I think is
Yeah,
the worst offender of well, best offender, worst offender of augmented reality.
right. But it is something that's coming, and I think it's coming quite quickly. And it's interesting that they also included this in their iPhone 10
Right.
phone.
Right. Yeah. And iPhone 10. Again, we keep saying iPhone X simply because if you try to Google it, iPhone X will be the one popping up everywhere. And I guess in like the last minute and a half, I guess we'll say pricing because again, you weren't very excited about $1,000 phone. We had this conversation before with family and more. And it's the idea that phones are no like if you're just using an iPhone as a phone at this point, then there's no reason for you to upgrade. But if if you're really taking full advantage of an iPhone and what it can do and what it can what it's capable of, $1,000 is probably isn't that much for what they can do nowadays.
Well, you're right. It's probably for this phone not that much, and yet the question is, do I need it? I
Yeah,
mean, there are millions of people out there using iPhone 5s, and they're very happy. As I said earlier, you don't take your phone today and say, "Oh, this thing is too slow." I mean, they're all pretty nifty. They're pretty fast. They can do quite a few things. This is a phone that you're going to spend $1,000 or $1,150 for, and you're going to want to be on the cutting edge. You're going to want to be the geek in the family. You want to show off everybody this phone. That's the Apple lovers are going to be buying this. So it's a certain clientele, and one thing we didn't talk about was how you have to do without the home button now.
Yeah.
So it's actually a learning curve to use this new phone. So it's going to be very interesting to see who buys it and how many they sell.
Absolutely. And of course, this holiday season, it will be, Samsung is back in gear, and of course, iPhone coming out with all the new stuff. Sandy, we are just out of time. If people want to find out more about you, your writings, where can they go? What can they do?
Try me at the CompuKiss website. That's COMPUKISS.com, or Hardware Secrets, where I'm doing a lot of writing right now. So you'll see a lot of really good articles from me on HardwareSecrets.com.
Perfect. Great to hear. And to everyone else, that means that we are just about done for today. Thank you for joining us here on Computer America. I'm glad that Sandy was the one to join us right after the Apple event. This was a lot of good information, and we hope that you come out of it smarter, better, and happier, knowing your options. So, Sandy, thank you. Everyone else out there, Computer America, thank you. We'll be back tomorrow with SteelSeries. That's right. They make gaming equipment, and you won't want to miss it. So, everyone, see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Bye.